Hey guys, how you doing? Today I'm going to be replacing the carburetor on my WJ66 chainsaw, and I've got a 32-inch bar on the saw right now. A couple weeks ago I did take some blue Loctite and put it on my carburetor screws, and that seemed to help quite a bit, but I still feel like the saw could be running better. I do have 150 psi compression. I did run a vacuum pressure test. There's no vacuum leaks. The next logical step is to go ahead and replace the carburetor. This came out around the time when they went to carbs with limiting caps. So some of the earlier saws you could actually get with carburetors without limiting caps, and then the later ones had limiting caps. So I went to my STIHL dealer and I actually got lucky, and I did pick up the carburetor that this saw would have had before limiting caps, which is a WJ67B. So what we're going to be doing in this video is taking the old carb out, putting the new one in, and then we'll fire it up and see how she runs. I've been watching a channel called Married with Small Engines, and whenever I'm watching that channel, the lady who does most of the repairs, she always removes the guide bar before doing repairs because it can be very awkward working on saws with the guide bar still on. So I figure why not go ahead and do it the easy way, right? Okay guys, normally I would not be working on the saw on this table, but to give you guys a better view, we'll see if we can do this. Okay, we've got two 8mm nuts here to take off. Now, before we go any farther, what I'm going to do is open the fuel tank and release any pressure in the fuel tank. If you don't do that, what'll happen is as soon as you remove the fuel line here, the fuel is just going to start to leak out. We've got the fuel line over here on the left, and then there's the impulse line underneath. All we have to do is just detach the fuel line and we did it right because there's not a bunch of fuel leaking out right now. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses. And then we can pull back to remove the carb, but first there's a throttle linkage. If you're looking right over here, there's a throttle linkage. So what I usually end up doing is you just take a pair of needle nose pliers, you push the throttle down a bit, and then hold it down with the screwdriver, and then you just lift it out, and your throttle linkage is off. And then to put it back, we just do the same thing. And it's much easier to do if you put your head where the camera is. And now, we just pull the carb, and we have removed the carb. This literally takes 3 minutes once you do it a couple times. You know, while we're in here, guys, this ring around the intake I was watching a video by a guy, and it's supposed to say top somewhere, and I don't see it saying top anywhere. So while we're in here, let's just pull this out and see if it does say top somewhere. Oh, it does. It very, very faintly says top right there. You really have to be looking for that, though. And I'll have to check the footage and see if I had it on right or not. Okay, so here's the carburetor we just took out of the saw. And then here is our new WJ67B STIHL part number 1122-120-0621. Let's see what we got in the box. So we got the fuel inlet, the impulse. We got screws on this side, old school screws. And then in the old carburetor, we have the shorter screws where there used to be like a little piece of metal in there. And also there were some red caps, which are gone. So hopefully this one will be able to keep the tune a little bit better. I got the piece switched over to the new carb. And just for comparison's sake, it's the same carb, but again, we don't have the limiting caps or that piece of metal that holds the limiting caps on. For some reason, the choke and the opening here looks bigger, but it's probably just my eyes. Plastic doesn't look as worn on this one. There's your bottom. And then there's your top. It says WJ69 on the old one, and then it says WJ67B on the new one. We're going to hold on to this old one just in case. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set our screws now. So for carbs of this era, usually it's one turn out. So we're going to turn our low speed screw in until it just seats. And then that's a half a turn, one turn. Then we're going to turn our high speed screw in until it just seats. And then that's a half a turn, and that's one turn. One aside is this little rubber piece is not going to work with the longer screws. So when I was at the dealer, he did have two different model numbers for this rubber piece, but he didn't really know the difference. And initially I thought my carb was actually going to be the same as the previous one. I didn't realize I was going to get lucky and get these longer screws. So I didn't order the piece just to see what showed up. But I can't use this piece again because it's a much narrower channel. There's no way that these screws are going to fit over that. So for the short term, we're just going to have to make do. Just a little side note, guys. I did open the fuel tank. You know, you bring the cold saw into the garage, you start working on it, you pull the fuel line, and then the fuel heats up, and it starts expanding, and you'll start getting a drip out of the tank. So I really recommend draining the tank and, you know, opening the cap a little bit so you don't end up with fuel spilling out the whole time you're working on the saw. It's a pain in the butt. But we're going to go ahead and put our new carb back on. We're going to line up the impulse line, and make sure that that goes on the way it's supposed to. And it is lined up, so we'll just push it forward. Then we can just take our fuel line and put it back on the barb for that. That's good. So hopefully I can do this without blocking your view. But you see this guy right here? We're just gonna push down on the throttle and lift up a little bit, and I got it on. See that? It takes some practice, but you'll get there. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and put this piece on. Oh, you know what? We'll go ahead and put this piece on first. There actually is a torque spec for these screws if anybody wants to look it up. I'm just going for snug and definitely not over tight. That's definitely snug. And that's snug. When I got the saw, it never came with this piece, so I also picked up one of these, and it's got a little clip on the inside right there that's going to clip right to the back of this. Just gonna clip right to the back of this. Clip you. There we go. Okay. It's clipped. Don't really know what that does, but it's there. Okay, you guys can't see, but I put a piece of rubber up above too. There was a shroud, another shroud that didn't come with the saw. So now we go ahead and put our air filter on. All right, let's see if we can get this bar back on. This can get pretty awkward. The newer models of this saw, there's like a snap here that kind of snaps the bar in place. We want to get it over the sprocket. And then snap it in there. We've got a lot of slack in that chain. We're actually over tight there. Looks good to me. Hey everybody, I haven't fired the saw up yet since I put the new carb on, so I just want to see if it runs, proof of life, but I'm not going to go ahead and do the fine tuning of the carb yet. Maybe I'll do that later today or tomorrow, and then we'll bring it back and make some cuts once I got it tuned. We'll see how it does, but let's just see how she starts. I'm just going to pull the cord a few times to get some fuel in the carb since it's dry. All right. Let's see what happens. That's a good sign. All right, I've clearly got some tuning to do, but it started in 3 pulls. I'm feeling good about that. right, guys, no regrets on the new carb. It's definitely running better with the new carb. However, I think the next thing is to get a new clutch or clutch springs. I'll probably just get a new clutch and a new drum, which I think is going to be something around $70 to $100. And I think that may be the piece of the puzzle. I think that may be the piece of the puzzle that puts it all together. I made some cuts with this, and I put the tachometer on it. I've got the idle on this saw at 2,500 RPMs. There are times I'll notice after the cut, it'll want to be up at like 2,700 RPMs, and then it'll slowly work itself down to 2,500. I tried adjusting the low screw a little richer, but it took me down to 24. I don't know how that sounds to you guys' ear. Wide open throttle, no load. I'm starting around 12.5, and then I'm peaking around 13, a little over 13. I think this thing has some kind of a limiter at 13.5. So I think 13 is well within acceptable tolerances. When I'm in the cut in the wood, there were a few times you'd notice I wouldn't cut much and take the saw out. It's 2-stroking or 4-stroking or doing, running rough. When I take it out of the wood, it runs rough. But when I put it back in the wood, it cleans right up, which I'm pretty sure is where things are supposed to be. So I really do think in my heart of hearts that all that's left now is to change that clutch. And I should have a like new 066 by the time you add up all the parts and time I spent, about the cost of a new 066. But I learned a ton, right, guys? So maybe we'll make another video when we do a clutch, but right now we're definitely heading in the right direction, and I definitely do want to order whatever grommet they have at STIHL, and then I may have to look into some of the aftermarket grommets for the carb screws, because it's so annoying trying to get your screwdriver lined up on them. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon. Take care.